Welcome, everybody. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we publish world-changing wellness books. The mission around here is to change the world one brave word at a time. And here today to help me do that is one of our newest authors, Shahmeen Sadiq. Welcome, Shahmeen. Say your name again so that they can hear it in your beautiful way.
It's Shahmeen Sadiq.
Thank you. Shahmeen is a master certified coach and founder of Anjali Leadership. Since 2005, she's guided the development of leaders from many industries. She was the first female faculty member of the Leadership Circle, and she's served as adjunct leadership faculty at the University of Notre Dame since 2013. Shahmeen has studied a breadth of human development and healing modalities, and her work weaves over 30 years of seeking, learning, and integrating into transformational guidance for people interested in becoming contributors to the well-being of humanity. And of course, I'm going to have all of you watchers and listeners hooked up down there in the show notes with her website so that you can follow her and see all of the amazing things she's up to, including this book. So I am very excited about her new book coming out soon. It's called Heart Matters, a poetic revolution of truth, healing, and belonging. And Shahmeen, I want you to start off by just telling us a little bit about your story. How did you get here doing what you do today?
Oh, that's a big question, Laura. How did I get here? Well, I guess I got here through my life. Throughout my entire life, I've always felt invisible. I've always felt like I'm not seen, I'm not heard, and I'm not understood. And for a long time, I thought that there was something wrong with me, that was because something was wrong with me. And what I've learned and what I continue to learn is that that's not actually true. There's a way that I move through my life and I move through my experiences that often feels different from what I observe outside of myself. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm wrong. It actually means that I'm different, and being different and being invisible are not the same. So it's been largely that. I think I've had sort of a desire to overcome that has guided me. And so that's why when you were reading the introduction about me, there are so many different elements that I'm bringing together in my work these days. And I think I was guided to be interested in a lot of different things, mostly out of a motivation to overcome my invisibility. And so in the end, it served me well, but there's been quite a bit of pain in that journey as well.
So can you tell us or give us an example of a time you remember when that was happening? And I know you've moved through a lot of healing. You've made your life's work about that kind of awareness. And that's the kind of conversation we're going to have today, which of course turns me on. But when do you remember? Give us a personal example of that invisibility.
I feel like there's a recent example I can give you. When the murder of George Floyd happened and was broadcast on TV and the internet to the world, there was an immediate and appropriate uprising and anger and indignant sort of response to that, and rightly so. And what I noticed was that in my own professional community, there were many people who jumped immediately into action. And I mentioned earlier that my process is different. So I'm more inclined to sit with things when they happen. So when that happened, as a person of color who lives in a world and works in an industry that is dominated by people who don't look like me, I thought the most important response for me, and also as a professional, was to sit and sort of wait. And I saw others kind of jumping immediately into action. And one person in particular who I respect a lot was doing that and was calling people together to start to read some of the books. And while I'm still in favor of reading those books, I think it's a great thing to do if you want to educate yourself. I felt that the speed was fast. So I asked her whether she'd consider slowing down, and the answer was no. And same with others. A lot of people jumped into action, and my feeling was that I was not heard. My invitation to just go a little bit slower was not heard. And so a lot of good things have come out of those initiatives that other people took. But I feel like there's a richer response. And it's taken me a year to get to that response. So it's not like popular to wait a year to say something. It's not, and it doesn't mean that during that year I did nothing. Excuse me, but I did feel very like shut out, like not respected, not seen, not understood. So and then while that was happening, I felt, oh, this is the pattern. Here it is again. Here it is right now. And always my choice is, how do I want to be with that? So what I decided to do was not be like everybody else and just continue to be myself and let my own process unfold quietly and behind the scenes, and let them do what they wanted to do as well. I realized as well that I can't really, stop anyone else from doing something. So that's just a very recent example. It's still a bit raw with me, and some of the poetry in the book actually speaks to that feeling.
And that's such a perfect transition into the next thing I'd love for you to talk about, which really is the poetry. But first, thanks for sharing that. I think that that vulnerability, just sharing those personal examples, I know that I resonate with what you said, and a lot of people will too. And feeling seen and heard, and that permission to allow ourselves to slow down in the moment versus jump into the reaction or whatever the response. Yeah, I hear you. And I love that you can talk about it like you do. And what great advice to all the people of the world to just be okay with how you need to do it and know that that's the right way for you. So it's the right way, and that's what makes it right, is because it feels good to you and it helps you. But let's do talk about this beautiful, beautiful, powerful, moving poetry of yours. When did you first start writing poetry?
I started writing poetry I wrote a poem in grade 3. And when I was in grade 3, it was the Tylenol was poisoned with cyanide. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, wow,
so it would have been in the 1970s. Yeah. I remember reading the newspaper and being sort of horrified that somebody could do that. And I wrote a poem about it. And my teacher gave me a very poor grade on the poem. And I think it was because I was grappling with some dark material, right? That was a very dark thing that I was writing about. And I actually tapped into what it must have been like to take one of those pills and die. That's actually what my poem was about, if I recall correctly. And I got this terrible grade. So I decided that I was not a writer and I was not a poet, because obviously my teacher had said this poem wasn't very good. So I didn't write another poem again until my kids were small. And so that was about maybe 16 years ago. 15, 16 years ago, I started to write poetry. And I'll tell you the story because it is actually kind of cool. I was at a retreat place that my parents had bought. We were at a family gathering. It was Christmas time. And the kids were acting up. I was in the throes of separating from my husband. We were still together, but we were kind of, when the marriage is disintegrating and it's going to be over, but you haven't kind of taken those steps yet. And I was feeling really frustrated because the kids were not listening to me. So I just put on my stuff and I said, I'm going for a walk. And I left them there with everybody else. And I went outside, and I happened to take my camera with me. And I don't know what prompted me to do that, but as I walked, and it was in this kind of wooded area, I saw these trees. And when I looked at these trees, I felt like I was supposed to take a picture of them. And I took 4 or 5 photographs of these beautiful trees. And as I took the photographs, these poems just came into my awareness. They just arrived. So I finished my walk, went home, went back, put the poems on the computer and put the pictures onto the computer and wrote the words that had come with them. And turned out they were just well, I think they were quite beautiful. And so, and those poems are actually in the book with illustrations, a drawing of the photographs that I took that day.
I love that story. Nature does that to me and my poems as well. When you get to connect to that energy and
Yeah.
that flow moves through, what a wonderful thing. Did you know right away that it was going to be something that other people read?
No, I didn't know what to do with them, so I just kept them. And then I did start to share them sometimes when I was leading a training or working with a team. I used other poetry. So I had been in the practice at that time of using poetry actually in leadership, because I think that the poets actually speak to the deeper truth about what it is to be human, which is also what it is to be a leader. And so I was practiced at using other poems. And then I started to slowly bring my own poetry in. And then, like you said, it kind of unfolded from there. I started to notice that, yes, when I was in nature, poems would come through. If I sat down and tried to write a poem, just like, let's say you said to me, I'll write a poem about the sun right now, I wouldn't be able to without actually going outside and being bathed in the sun's rays. It does not come through will, they come through surrender. And I call it sacred exchange. It's like a sacred exchange when I surrender my will enough to just be with whatever is out there. Then the words come, the guidance comes, and the poems come that way.
I love listening to you share that process, and I have a similar process, and encourage anyone listening. I'm just one of those people who's going to say to everyone, you're all poets, you're all artists, you're all writers, you're all healers, right? And because it's just about tapping into that place.
Mm-hmm.
And something you said in the very top of our show was that, I do it differently. And if people can understand their own way, the way they do the connection, then I think magic happens from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really important. I had a radio show for 2 years where it was called Stories from the Heart of Leadership, where I asked my guests to tell us the backstory. Because it's so easy to look at what someone is today or what they've produced, or even when you read this book, oh, she's so this, that, or the other. But it's not that someone just arrived and there they were, doing their thing, whatever it is. We all had to get there somehow. And I wanted people to hear the stories of the struggle, because what is most important to me is that the readers of this book and the people who are listening to this and others who I come across in my work know that they're not the only ones. So I said, I do it differently. So do you. So does she. So does he. We do it our own way, and our own way is beautiful. Even if you look around and you see that no one else seems to be doing it that way, or seems to be struggling with what you're struggling with. I mean, know that you're not the only one. And so by talking about this, explicitly, I hope that it brings some comfort to people who might be wondering, am I the only one? Am I like crazy? Or no, you're you. And that's what's most beautiful.
Yes. So the book is not just poems. It's, of course, you talked about your trees,
Yes.
photographs, illustrations, and it's personal reflection as well. And to me, it was a guide for a powerful awareness practice. And awareness is everything. For me, it's everything. It's the healing. It's the opportunity for awakening. I could go on and on. What I would love for you to talk about is your own personal awareness practice and how it relates to, what's in the book, but maybe what other things too. Tell me about awareness for you.
Mm-hmm. There was a day where, so you mentioned that I used to teach for the Leadership Circle. The Leadership Circle is an instrument that a lot of coaches like to use. And there's a rating sort of that you get about yourself, and there are different dimensions. And one of the dimensions that is not really desirable to have is called arrogance. And I noticed that my score on arrogance was a little higher than what I had hoped it would be. And I think that's the window for me into my journey into self-awareness. I think arrogance it has a flavor of thinking you're better than, or thinking like saying I'm different also can sound like I'm better. So I think I was starting to show up that way around other people. And I was also getting really good at leadership consulting and leadership coaching and these transformational conversations. And I knew it. So this has led me into something that I call exquisite self-awareness. And to me, that's one of the most important things that I could have cultivated, and I invite my clients to as well. So it's really, for me, it's a blend of mindfulness and something I call compassion 2.0, which is when I see something in someone else that irritates me, the natural arrogant sort of way to deal with that is to blame them, criticize them, have a judgment about them. Instead, my practice has been, and I'm very intentional about this most of the time, is to say, how am I just like that? How can I be just like that? And if I notice that I can be like that, then I spend time kind of noticing that and saying, oh, okay, I can be that way too. If I notice that I can't, if I say, no, I'm never like that, I would never want to be like that, that's the most horrible thing in the world, then my practice is to say, well, maybe there's a part of me that could be like that, and I have no relationship to it. And when I see it out there, it's triggering me and it's irritating me, but my work is to look in here. And so that is my self-awareness practice, is really that. I think it's just saying, how could I be just like that? And if not, what part of me needs to be made friends with so that I have a relationship with that part, so that when I see it out there, I don't have to get so up in arms about it. And I firmly believe that that would make a huge difference when you look in the world and see what's happening, wars and conflict and disallowing and everything that is going on that causes us strife. This is one of the ways to actually remedy that, to actually transform that and change it.
Super incredibly powerful. And I hope you all who are listening understand that, when you play in the sandbox with an authentic leader, a leader who practices this kind of awareness every day, part of their own practice is calling out their own BS. And to even understand that it's bubbling up in you is, I call these the ninja moves of awareness, right? These are master level moves in terms of what you practice noticing in yourself. Oh my gosh, we could talk about this all day. I love this topic. I love this topic because it changes everything. You know this. It makes for an incredible leader. Tell me a little bit more about leadership and what you're doing in that realm.
Well, I've been working in this realm for about 16, 17 years now. So where I am today with it is I've been a company of one for most of this time. I've done things by myself. And that's another piece that's in my book is, I developed this part of this overcoming is being very reliable to myself, very self-reliant and capable. And so that's kind of been my strength and also my downfall. But nonetheless, I've noticed the limitations of that in the last couple of years and have, to my utter delight, built a team of coaches and other experts who support us. And our work right now at Anjali Leadership, which is the business that I founded way back when I started all of this, we work with the top 3 levels of leadership in organizations so that we can help them to make a transformation. We're not just working with leaders who are falling off the rails and need to be fixed. That's actually my least favorite work to do. We're working with the leaders who are doing okay, but know that they could be even better. And better, by better, what I mean is they could be balancing their skill at getting things done and doing things well with working with people really, really well. So we're mostly focused on the people side of it. And most of the work is actually, it always comes down to relationships. How are people relating at work? So now what we've done that's different this year is built a team, and we're focusing primarily on these top 3 levels in any organization, because I've also come to the conclusion that leadership, while everyone can build and grow and develop their own personal leadership in an organization, if you want things to be better, different, more effective, and whatever measures you have in place to measure that, you've got to start working at the top, because the, as I say, shift rolls downhill. So the shifts that the top leaders are making roll down. And I have so many examples I could share of times when, HR didn't want to really address the most senior leaders, so they had us work with middle managers, and that's fantastic for those people. But the thing is, when I'm working with someone and they're coming up against their own limiting beliefs and starting to shift that, it doesn't take if above them, the people above them continue to perpetuate the old patterns. So that's where we are these days. We're really keen and committed to working with those 3 levels. And if someone asks us to do something that isn't that, we're actually now saying no to that. We may develop some other things that will be helpful for people at those levels that they can self-serve. But yeah, this is sort of I've turned a corner with this, from taking whatever work kind of showed up gratefully to really putting a stake in the ground around this transformation. If it's to happen, it's got to start at the top.
Nice. I love that. I also love that you're talking about the clarity that you had about what you do and what you want to continue to do, and that lane where your brilliance comes through. It's cool to be unapologetic about where you want to be and what you want to do. So the world has had a tough year and a half, almost 2 now. And I really want to know, let's have a conversation around what you would say to someone listening today who's still really stuck in the suffering.
Well, first, I would say that this has been unprecedented. Most of us cannot remember a time like this. And my heart is with everyone who is suffering, because we all have suffered in various ways, some in a very, very profoundly, deeply loss-filled way. And so first, my heart is with everyone who is trying to navigate this and having to deal with all the things that have unfolded. What would I say? I would say that this gave us the opportunity collectively to slow down, which is actually what, I keep trying to say. What if we just slowed down for a moment and just kind of reached a little bit deeper into ourselves? And so when the pandemic actually started, my business evaporated. I have a lot of friends who said, "Oh, I'm really busy, busier than ever before." Not me. My corporate clients were too busy trying to deal with everyone suddenly working from home and all of that to have a coaching call. So we were that sort of fizzled out for the time. And what I began to do was ask people if they wanted to gather every day to just sit together. And so we started to do something that actually we did for 397 days in a row, which is called the Power Pause. And so what I would say is, find a community like the Power Pause where you can come together, because we couldn't come together in person anymore, right? So we use the technology that's available. And I'm not speaking any great new thing here, because we all know about Zoom and people use Teams and whatever else they use. We came together every morning for half an hour, and we would sit together for 15 minutes in some kind of mindfulness practice, some sort of meditation. It's different every day. And then the second 15 minutes we spent just having a chance to check in with each other. And I did that because when the pandemic arrived on our doorstep in North America, I knew that there was going to be chaos. And I thought it would be good to just create a space where people could land. But what happened as the days went by and the months went by is it became something that was about connection and community. So it's easy to get a meditation app on your phone and, just use that. So this is just part of it. But that carving out that space to be mindful and then to be together and to be noticing what we noticed about ourselves, which comes back to self-awareness, by the way, has been profound and has been profoundly healing for the people who have been coming. So I would say find a place where you belong, where you can be in community with others. I don't think we're finished with this pandemic yet. I know everyone's returning to work in Canada where I live. Kids are going back to school next week. I know all of that is happening and we're putting as many safeguards in place as possible. But I think we might have another, I hate to say this, but 12 to 18 months before we're on the other side of this. And so during that time, you've got to find a place to be in community with others and to be in a deeper conversation, or even just a lighter conversation. Like, today I feel crappy. Yeah, I know what that's like. Me too. Just that can be so supportive instead of going it alone. So find a place. There's lots of online places, and the Power Pause is one of them. But there are many others as well, where you can be part of a positive conversation with other humans. It will do a world of good for your mental health. And that is what we have found as well.
Oh my gosh, yes, with an exclamation point to everything you just said. Oh, I hope you guys are listening to that and that you take action on that. And Shahmeen can be found at thishumanbeing.com. I've got that down below for you guys. She has a couple of websites and some different resources. So we're going to put everything down below for you guys so you can go explore. And please do that, okay? There's a lot going on in Shahmeen's world that she didn't have time to talk about today that you can find on the site. And oh my goodness, this book, you guys. Join us for a live stream book launch party to celebrate the Heart Matters book. It's September 21st, 10 a.m. Eastern. And I'm going to ask Shahmeen to come to that and read a couple of the poems from her book that day. We may have a few secret little giveaway things for you that day. We've got all kinds of things up our sleeves, you guys. So I hope that you will calendar that. And then, of course, don't forget to hop over to Amazon when the book is ready and grab your copy. But Shahmeen, I just wanted to say thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everybody.
Thank you so much, Laura. And the same right back to you. I think what you're up to is incredible, and I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Thank you. We're going to be changing the world with your brave words. And because you know already that I am such a poetry geek, I love it. I eat it up and I write it and I think it and it pours out of me. And I love to read beautiful words that have come from that beautiful higher source in others as well. And just wait, you guys, until you read this book. So honored to be helping Shahmeen put it into the world. And okay, so today, lastly, I just want you all to remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. What if that little thing that you're still a little afraid to share is exactly what someone needs to hear to change or even save their life? It is time to be brave. See you next time, everybody. Thank you, Shahmeen.
Thank you.